What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, legendary, undefeated, retired, former pound for pound king, former 5 division world champion, now turned promoter of Mayweather Promotions, CEO and founder, Floyd Money Mayweather, and his fighter, undefeated 2 division world champion, currently the WBA lightweight world champion, superstar boxer, Gervonta Tank Davis, ahead of their highly anticipated showdown. October 24th was the original date. Then they moved the date from October 24th to October 31st. Why is that important? I'll tell you in a second. But they have moved the date from October 24th to October 31st to have fans in attendance. They moved it from Connecticut to San Antonio, Texas at the Alamo Dome, where they'll have fans attend a live boxing event, right? But there's something else that goes along with this, right? They'll be facing 4 division world champion Mexican superstar boxer Leo Santa Cruz in that showdown. And obviously, there's a huge Mexican fan base in Texas, right? Because Texas is very, very close to Mexico. So there will be a lot of fans that will support this outing and this event and this fight, right? But with that said, there's another reason that they moved this fight from October 24th. And that is due to the fact that UFC founder and president Dana White also always stages a UFC event, a massive UFC event, every single time it seems like. Well, it doesn't seem like. I know he does this. He's put on a pay-per-view massive event to rival whatever's taking place in the sport of boxing. If you don't know, Dana White loves the sport of boxing. He wants to be a part of the sport of boxing. He says that he eventually wants to be a promoter in the sport of boxing. So Dana White, we just saw with Jamel and Jamal Charlo, when they staged their pay-per-view event just a few weeks ago, he put on the event where he had one of his superstars in the sport of the UFC, Israel Dos Santos. I think that's his name. I'm a casual of the UFC, right? And he put on a massive event that saw Jamel Charlo, who was the main event, because there was 2 different main events. You had his identical twin brother, Jamal Charlo fighting Sergey Derevyanchenko. That was the first main event. The second main event was Jamel Charlo versus Jason Rosario in a unification bout. And they had to end up having that fight start at 1 o'clock in the morning. And that fight, mind you, this took place in Connecticut. So that fight starting at 1 o'clock on the East Coast is very, very late. But it had to do so because Dana White had his superstar fight in at the same time. So they had to wait until that fight was over. This is not the first time Dana White has done this. When 4 division Mexican superstar boxer Saul Canelo Alvarez fought Sergey Kovalev when he dared to be great and move up to the light heavyweight division for Sergey Kovalev's WBO title, once again, Dana White put on a massive UFC card, pay-per-view, that rivaled the sport of boxing. And they don't want to lose their ratings. Boxing doesn't want to compete with the UFC, so what they try to do is they try to wait it out. So once again, Canelo Alvarez and Sergey Kovalev was seen laying on a couch in their dressing rooms because they had to wait until the UFC event was over before they could start making their ring-long fight, because they didn't want to do it. They didn't want to be in the ring fighting at the same time UFC's main event card was on. So guess what Dana White did? When he figured out that Gervonta Tank Davis and Leo Santa Cruz was fighting October 24th, guess what he did? He put on arguably his biggest star in the sport of the UFC in Khabib the same night and the main event, right? So guess what? Floyd Mayweather, sport of boxing, they got together and they said it's even better for us to move to a later date and we can have it at the Alamo Dome with fans in attendance, right? So guess what Dana White has done now? You got it. Dana White is putting on a massive card October 31st with UFC legend, icon, in his last fight in the history, his farewell fight, his retirement fight, Anderson the Spider Silva will be fighting the same night as Gervonta Tank Davis and Leo Santa Cruz. That is huge because this is a farewell fight for Anderson Silva. So guess what? All eyes will be on deck to watch Anderson the Spider Silva, who is an iconic legend and arguably the greatest UFC fighter in the history of mixed martial arts. This very same night. So what Dana White is doing is covering ground because now you see he had his biggest active star, arguably, outside of Conor McGregor, in Khabib fighting the 24th. So when they moved their card to the 31st, Halloween Day, he decided to put on Anderson Silva's farewell fight. So he's going to have two back-to-back massive pay-per-views. And this is a clear indication that he's certainly doing this simply because he wants to compete with the sport of boxing. Because he's having two massive pay-per-view events back-to-back. That is to throw off the sport of boxing. That is to compete with the sport of boxing. And today, we had legendary promoter and CEO of Top Rank, Bob Arum, on the show on Blue Blood Sports TV today. And Bob Arum said that he believed that the Jamel and Jamal Charlo pay-per-view event only did 70,000 pay-per-views. Now, originally, my sources told me it did 240,000 pay-per-views. So that's well off from Bob Arum's 70,000 pay-per-view number, right? But who knows what the actual pay-per-view numbers are. I think it's more closer to what my sources told me about it than what Bob Arum stated about the 70,000. I don't believe it's that low. But what I will say is that, you know, the UFC doing this purposely definitely affects the sport of boxing. And this is no coincidence. Oddly enough, though, Dana White and Floyd Mayweather have a relationship. So you would think that why would Dana White want to do this to Floyd Mayweather? Well, I believe that Dana White is just simply doing this to the sport of boxing, to stick it to the sport of boxing, because Dana White wants to be involved in the sport of boxing. And I'm starting to figure that maybe the sport of boxing is kind of, you know, freezing Dana White out. So in doing so, Dana White is like, okay, well, I'll just compete with you. Every time you put on a massive pay-per-view event, I will compete with you. And you can bet your bottom dollar when Errol the True Spence Jr. fights December 5th, there will be a massive UFC pay-per-view card going on that very same night. You can bet your bottom dollar on that one. So Dana White is trying to throw off the actual numbers because now you have combat sports fans. Now you have UFC fans that are just solely diehard UFC fans, and then you have some boxing fans just solely diehard fans, right? Boxing fans, right? And then you have guys that are, and people, should I say, men and women who are down the middle. They're just combat sports fans, right? They want to watch both. And so what Dana White is doing is he's drawing those fans away because he's putting on the fights that the fans want to see in the sport of UFC, right? The sport of boxing, we're not always getting the best fight and the best. In the UFC, you're getting the best fight and the best all the time. Dana White does his absolute best to put on the best versus the best in the UFC. And me, I'm a casual UFC fan, right? But I know who Anderson the Spider Silva is because he is the reason why I got into even laying eyes on the UFC, right? And then Khabib with Conor McGregor, we understand what that fight meant to the UFC, how big it was, right? So, you know, Dana White is not doing this by accident. This is done on purpose. Believe that. So now Gervonta Tank Davis fighting in the Alamo Dome against Leo Santa Cruz in his very first pay-per-view headline, right? And he's pegged to be, if you listen to Leonard Ellaby, Mayweather Promotions CEO and the figurehead of Mayweather Promotions, Leonard Ellaby, he tells anybody that will listen that Gervonta Tank Davis is a star. He is the next Floyd Mayweather. He's the he's the next pay-per-view star in the sport of boxing, right? Floyd Mayweather said that it's a possibility that Leo Santa Cruz and Gervonta Tank Davis could do 1 million pay-per-view buys, right? So they're expecting this to do massive numbers. Well, guess what? Dana White is not expecting it to do massive numbers because he wants to affect those numbers. He's looking to affect their bottom line. And you best believe Anderson the Spider Silva, in his last fight in the history of the sport of boxing, his farewell fight, is going to do massive numbers because it's going to be an event in itself. Everybody's going to want to have be a part of Anderson Silva's last go-around in the sport of the UFC. You can bet your bottom dollar that there's going to be massive waves of people paying for this UFC event. So it's definitely going to affect Gervonta Tank Davis and Leo Santa Cruz. You can bet your bottom dollar on that. So there's no coincidence. Initially, it came off as Gervonta Tank Davis, Leo Santa Cruz was being moved because they want fans to be in attendance, and the state of Texas is allowing fans to attend live sporting events and moving into the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas from Connecticut, who's not going to allow fans in attendance, seemed like the best move, the perfect move, to move it a week later. But now it's starting to show that a big part of the reason that they moved it a week later is due to the UFC. But guess what Dana White did? He's chasing them down and put on another massive card the very next week. And the indication that he's doing this purposely is that he's putting on 2 massive pay-per-view events back-to-back weekends. So he's just looking simply to affect the sport of boxing and definitely their numbers. So let's see how this all plays out. But drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue, Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed? Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. Hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.